Chapter 5. The Sodex Sphagnum Sphagoph Gate. Jinto was eating some combat rations, which consisted of pre-cooked tube things. Probably safe to assume they were nutritious. Each one possessed its own unique flavor too. Yet they all shared what the Ov liked in their food. Those varied flavors were all very, very light. He was sick of them. Don't NCCs aboard of ships ever complain? Maybe the people on planets like Martinu and Delctu just had sensitive tongues compared to the majority. He regretted not having Sruff supply some of his food. If only all that turmoil hadn't distracted him. Jinto washed down his rations with a juice that could only charitably be described as sweet. Jinto, the Sphagoph Gate has come into view, said Leifir. Cool. Jinto deposited his trash in midair as he'd be throwing it out later. Without much gravity to pin them, all the garbage drifted flakily through the room. How's it look? Can't be sure yet. Leifir's gaze was fixed to her screen. There's a group of space-time bubbles. Can't tell whose side they're on. What do we do if they're the enemy? Jinto was 100% aware what it meant if they were the enemy, but he couldn't not ask. We break through, obviously. Even if we wanted to turn back, we don't have the fuel. You see that, surely? Oh, you don't have to seek my consent. I know what you decide is for the best. How many times did he have to be reminded how useless he was? We're set to cross the Sphagoph Gate in 7 hours' time. Sure hope they roll out the welcome mat for us. Sadly, they may roll out something else entirely to greet us. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Yes, I really know how to cheer people up, she said, taking it in stride. Damn it. Jinto had tried tossing a wrapper straight into the trash slot, but it missed its mark, and now he had to take off his seat belt and go collect it. It had taken around 2 hours for the area surrounding the Sphagoph Gate to become more clearly visible. 20-odd space-time bubbles were prowling the vicinity of the gate, like an uneven helix. This isn't looking good. She was tapping the screen, which was displaying the map of flat space, with a finger. What isn't? Jinto, I have some bad news. Don't worry, I expected as much. You don't need to tell me. Can I ask how you know? That's not a Star Forces formation. Were they Star Forces ships on the lookout, their formation would be more elegant. And I don't think they could possibly be Isith, transport freighters, either. Gotcha. Jinto tried picturing what a more elegant formation looked like. He failed. Oh well. If he was lucky, he'd learn at the Quartermaster's Academy. Guess it's gonna take us that much longer to get to Lokfikar now, huh? Jinto sighed. He pondered how homey a united humankind prison camp might be. Then, the space-time bubbles shifted. One of their number began heading toward their small connecting vessel, but at a terribly languid pace. It must be massive, said Leifir calmly. Then it ought to be easy to dodge, right? In effect. Phew. It was difficult to see how things could go their way even after escaping from that crowd of bubbles, but then again, he didn't much care to see soldiers up close and personal, either. Don't be too happy. Judging by its size, that bubble most likely contains a battle line warship. Is that bad? Leifir gave him some side-eye. That jogged his memory. Alek, battle line. Warships were designed to shower the enemy with a rain of space mines. In a battle in normal space, that was no match for a Risi patrol ship, but in flat space it was the strongest vessel of all. On her map, their little connecting vessel was represented by a blue blip, with likely hostile space-time bubbles as yellow blips. Agonizingly slowly, the distance between the two dots kept changing. Around an hour later, the Sphagoph Gate blocked the way between the yellow and the blue. The blue dot made no bones about driving headlong to its destination. I'm picking up a friend or foe call sign, said Leifir, clutching her Frosh sensory organ from above her circlet. From an Empire ship? Asked Jinto, with a faint hope. Can't tell where it's coming from, but the one thing that's certain is that it's not the Empire asking. Boy, I could really use a pleasant surprise from time to time. He wanted to cry, but he managed to hold back his tears. Could we lie and say we're allies? Leifir seemed impressed. You can come up with some underhanded tactics? I blame my upbringing, Jinto sulked. To answer the question, no, we can't. I hate how my hunches are always on the mark. There it is. Leifir scowled. There what is? Whatever it was, it couldn't be good. Their detention order. If you don't assume the stationary state will attack. Let me guess, we're not stopping. Leifir's shock showed on her face. You'd want me to? Hell no, he said, in the heat of the moment. But his words belied his true feelings. Just making sure. A short while later, Leifir mumbled, they're near. Now that it had come down to it, Jinto didn't reply with his customary, what is? 3 dots split off from the big yellow one. 3 extremely fast mines. Faster even than their vessel. Rapidly, they closed in. As he eyed those blips zeroing in after them on the map, his mind suddenly expanded to the possibility that, just maybe, life in a prison camp was in fact wonderful. The connecting vessel swerved not. Jinto probed Leifir's expression as she stared intently at the screen. Had she given up? Dotted lines of green, red, and other colors besides had appeared on the flat space map. At long last, Leifir gripped the steering gear and made their vessels bubble strafe to the side. A slight while after the blue blip on the screen altered its course, the yellow ones turned in pursuit. Persistent bastards, thought Jinto, grinding his teeth. He wanted to break out into a bawl. He wanted to call Lena's name. But the image of Leifir doing her level best beside him helped him keep his emotions from erupting. Why was she putting in so much effort, though? Even if they did escape, the mines would come after them, and they'd catch up eventually. Suddenly, it clicked. Leifir's big plan. She was waiting for the mine's fuel to run out. That's why she was trying her damnedest to postpone their chance encounter with fiery death. Of course, she had to get closer to the gate at the same time. Otherwise, the battle line would just fire more mines. If they didn't get beat out by the additional mines, they'd run out of fuel anyway. God, if you really exist, then I beg you, poof these guys out of existence. He made the sign of the cross and cast his eyes on the yellow blips. He should have gone to church more often. Then he'd have been able to snuff it with a more tranquil soul. The yellow boss dot fired off another round of 3 mine dots. I don't remember asking for more mines. Jinto shouted, unable to bottle it up any longer. That may be a sign we're going to win, said Leifir excitedly. What do you mean? The reason they had to fire again is because the first set is running out of fuel. Sure enough, as Leifir panted out her commentary, the first 3 blips faded away. Yes, Jinto whooped, but his mood took a drearier turn when he remembered the other 3. It's okay. We can do this. The Svogov gate was close by. The crooked helix was reminiscent of a spider web, and the blue dot, a butterfly chased by a bird. Leifir inserted her left hand into the control glove. The connecting vessel trembled, proof the Saya engine was ignited. The yellow dot was hot on the blue dot's trail, snapping at their tail end and closing the distance. Perhaps in consideration of Jinto, the walls began displaying video of the outside, the gray nothing of flat space. He looked behind him. White light was gushing out from a point at their back. Colors flickered to and fro around the dazzling corona, colors that swelled before his very eyes. This disgustingly beautiful light show portended Gor Taroth, space-time fusion. Battle acceleration is a go, said Leifir. Their seats morphed into their sleeping cot modes. The colors that tinged the gray flowed alongside their acceleration until they'd become a solid band of hues. They rushed overhead from behind his back and from the front of the ship, where his feet were pointed, to the back, combining to forming great rainbow rings. A space-time bubble was a universe unto itself, with a space-time bubble engine at its center. Multiple such engines would be meaningless, since accelerating wouldn't change one's position within the pocket universe. Instead, it would appear to be spinning in place, and Jinto had witnessed what effect that rotation would have. Yet he wasn't sure he was up to feeling the full blast of acceleration right now either. Won't they just chase us into normal space, said Jinto, bracing against the G-forces as they steadily ratcheted from 6 Demon to even higher speeds. In normal space, we're faster than they are. That's a relief. The yellow and blue dots were very nearly touching when the rainbow colors and the gray canvas vanished, replaced by the star-pricked black of the heavens. They were back in normal space. Again, he turned to look back. The normal space side of the Svogov gate, a dimly radiating ball of gas, was floating there. And the mines. Over there. Her Frokras detected them faster than Jinto could. Whenever they ported over from flat space, from which point of the gate they exited was completely up to random chance. As such, Even if their pursuers exited through the same point on the uneven helix as they did, they wouldn't necessarily come out of the same section of the sphere. Mine after enemy mine popped in from various off-target spots on the giant orb that was the gate, its phosphorescence helping them see them better. They were still homing in on the connecting vessel, only laughably slowly. Woohoo! Jinto cheered. But wait, there must be enemies around here, right? Not in the immediate vicinity. Well, that's stupid of them. Even a novice like Jinto understood how important it was to guard the gate. They're busy with other things. See for yourself. Leifir pointed even as they accelerated to yet higher velocities. She was pointing to the sole inhabited planet of the Svagov Marquisate, named Klaspul, or as the Ov spelled it, Claysphere. The way it was positioned relative to him, it almost felt natural to reach out and pluck it from the sky. Light shone from the part of the planet covered in night, only to fade immediately. I bet the enemies that were in flat space were on high alert for any Star Forces ships that might come from the outside. They're blockading Svagov. So they're still battling it out as we speak? Jinto groaned. Yep, Leifir nodded. Is it just me, or are we headed toward Klaspul? Of course we are. That's our destination. But it's a war zone down there. Where else is there? You've got a point there. And seeing as there was no guarantee the Star Forces would win, they could hardly wait it out in nearby space. For one, even though they'd put some significant distance between themselves and the mines, they were still following them. Secondly, nothing precluded the possibility yet more of the enemy would emerge from the gate for their heads. That being said, jumping into an active battlefield still wasn't the most appealing prospect. In fact, he rather loathed the idea. Imperial Star Forces, come in. This is the connecting vessel of the patrol ship Gosloth, she said, without transmitting video. After trying several times, they finally received a response. This is the Svagov Liaison Fleet Base speaking. Report your status, connecting vessel. The Gosloth encountered an unidentified group of space-time bubbles in the sector of Item 533. This vessel broke off from the mothership with non-combatants and navigation log in tow. We'll be touching down here at present. Roger that, connecting vessel. As an anti-espionage measure, you are forbidden from divulging any further details on the matter. Roger, Svagov Base. Requesting instructions. Unfortunately, this base cannot field your vessel. You must proceed without instruction. Leifir bit her lower lip. Roger, Svagov Base. This vessel will proceed without instruction. Sathet victory be ours. The chances of that are slim, they laughed drily. But still, Sathet February, victory be the Empire's. They hung up. Jinto couldn't stop himself from asking, does that mean we're losing? Of course it does, she said, rattled. The number of troops stationed in each territory nation is small. Do you think a single liaison fleet base can hold back a full-scale invasion? I'm sorry. It was a dumb question. No, I'm sorry, said Leifir. Forgive me, Jinto. In the end, I failed in my mission to escort you safely. It wasn't your fault, he answered back in an almost canned way. So where's the enemy? They're still far, but 3 ships are headed our way. Is 3 their lucky number or what? Jinto looked ahead, or as he perceived it, up. Klaspul had gotten even bigger, filling up almost all of his field of vision. While he couldn't spot any enemy encampments, he did notice something thread-like sauntering off from the planet's noonday zone. What's that thing? Looks like an orbital tower. Oh yeah, the tower. Destroyed, it was still revolving, glinting off the rays of Svagov's sun. A lowly act. Orbital towers aren't military bases. There was something they had to be worrying about more than the enemy's character. Can this thing land at all now? Land? Leifir turned her neck to look at him dead-on. Yeah. I mean, what other option is there with the orbital tower gone? He said, horrified at what that meant. Is it impossible? No, it should be possible. Should be possible? Should be? Oth letters appeared on screen. Leifir gave them a cursory glance. I knew it. It is possible. Hold on a sec. Are you telling me you didn't give landing the ship any thought until this very moment? Yes, she nodded, looking guilty. You didn't even think about entering the planet to begin with, did you? No. Then why all the hustle? Ugh, I feel so weighted down. How long are we going to be accelerating for anyway? I thought we'd be aiding in the fight. How would we do that? Things not even armed. Did you think we'd take them out the way you took out the Baron? I didn't think that far ahead. But there still might be something we can do. Besides, there are 3 ships tailing us at the moment. That may be true, but from where I'm standing it'd have been suicide. You're right, I was being hasty. She lowered her eyes. And I didn't even consult you, my passenger. Consult me. Jinto was suddenly seized with anger. You idiot. Leifir's eyes widened with shock, but then shame set in. You have every right to speak ill of me. I was undervaluing your life. No, who cares about my life? I take that back, I do care about my life, but that's not what I'm so worried about. What about your life, Leifir? Now Leifir's eyes burned with rage. I nearly wrapped you up in a war with little hope of victory, and for that I must apologize. I resign myself to any punishment you have to dole out, no matter how cruel. Punishment, he gasped. You honestly think I want to punish you? And cruelly at that. Leifir wasn't about to stand down. But you have no business firing at me over my own life. Maybe not, he cried, but what I'm trying to say is, why do you feel the need to rush to your own death when you've got such a long life ahead of you? Could you maybe spare some thought to surviving, Leifir? I am not rushing to my death. Really? 'Cause that's what it looks like. Didn't you say you only fight when you have to? Or was that a lie? The fight's already here, Jinto. This is a war zone. And when a soldier's on a battlefield, they fight. All right, fine. If you want to fight, go ahead. But seeing as I'm not a soldier yet, do me a favor and drop me off on that planet. Fine. It's not like you'd be any use in battle anyway. Oh, and you'll be so useful with your tiny ship. Go on. What do you plan on doing in this thing, exactly? The two glared at each other. Leifir was the first to look away. I'm sorry, Jinto. This is the greatest day of my life, said Jinto, releasing the tension. A royal princess apologized to me twice. Even among nobility, that's something to boast about, right? Don't tease me, Jinto. But you're right. Even if I were to join the battle, this vessel would serve no purpose. You're not the only one who's useless. I am, too. Which isn't your fault, he consoled her. I've already told you, but you're not useless to me. I'm grateful for everything. And I mean it. I may be useless now, but one day people will rely on me. I just want to survive long enough to get to that point, and I want you to survive too. Uh-huh, she answered tersely. As their anger subsided, so too did their fear. Earlier, Jinto felt as though his heart was in a vice, but now it was back to normal. No use worrying. What will be will be. Jinto screwed up his resolve. He would take after the style of the Ov. He wouldn't dwell on the what-ifs of his own potential death. At the very least, death among the stars would descend quickly, without any long-lasting pain. What if he were to fall asleep or lose consciousness? At these blistering speeds, he could imagine closing his eyes 1 second and finding himself in heaven the next. It'd be right out of a feel-good movie. Unfortunately, his consciousness was not flagging. After a while, the call sign rang. That the liaison base? No. The transmission is coming from the spaceship ahead of us. So it's hostile, huh? They close. Yes. Very. Jinto squinted. Something grain-sized was shining against the planetary backdrop. Was that the enemy ship? Leifir answered the call. Pandong Zop Kos Riji. Nakoshek, a language Jinto couldn't understand. The hell is that? The official language of the United Humankind. They say they'll attack unless we stop accelerating. You know that language? Yes, I study it at the academy. And so will you at the Quartermaster's Academy. Ugh. And after I finally mastered Baranu. Don't worry, it's a simple language to learn. But in exchange for being simple, she frowned, it lacks any richness. In terms of elegance, it can't even stand in the same ring as Baranu. Yeah, probably not, said Jinto as the foreign words fell on his ears. It seemed as though they were repeating the same sentences over and over. Leifir dropped the line without responding. She'd never once entertained the notion of negotiating with them. I was looking forward to whether they ever said anything different. I really don't want to be killed by a bunch of humorless pricks. Me neither. At last, they could make out the enemy clearly. Their ships made up the vertices of a pyramid with an equilateral base. Jinto, I have some good news. Good news? I've almost forgotten what that's like. Lay it on me. The main battlefield is on the other side of the planet. The ships right in front of us are the only ones here. That's awesome. But we don't know when they'll get reinforcements from the other side, right? No, we don't. However, the chances that happens are low. Then, let's make a run for the surface when those scary old codgers get up from their seats to take a leak. Right after we dodge their attacks. The ship loomed nearer by the second. Suddenly, all sense of gravity disappeared. Just as suddenly, they lurched hard to the right. He'd experienced this once before, during their battle against the Baron. The connecting vessel dodged enemy fire through chaotic propulsion. Moments passed, and a glint of light flashed to their right. Unless he was imagining it, the enemy's laser or antiproton beam must have collided against particulate matter. The spectacle of battle always gave him goosebumps. The constant shifts in perceived gravity were making him dizzy. Unlike the fight at Febdash, he was secured in place, so this was slightly preferable, or so he thought initially. He got pushed against the seat, suspended from it, pinned in such a way that he looked like he was being crucified upside down. You can take it. You can take it. Jinto endured as the contents of his stomach gradually rose up. He wondered who had it harder in times like these, the pilot or their passengers. The enemy ship came into view overhead. The second lay right below, and the third to the left. Their close encounter with the enemy had already concluded. By the time the G-force fluctuations ceased, the Asatek, propelling flames of the enemy ships were flickering far behind them. Did we get away? Yes. They can't catch up to us now, even if they about-face. Man, they really let us past without much of fight, huh? Ignorance is bliss, said Leifir, exasperated. We missed one of their lasers by a mere 20 dag. If it had hit us, would we be in trouble? In that we'd be scattering as a clump of plasma, yes. Now that's a tragic ending, he said quietly. Leifir picked up the phone. The other side shouted, Kulin Mapos Tang Kip. What did they say just now? Nothing that a young lady, said one angry, blushing Leifir, should ever repeat. Gotcha. I'm going to start decelerating soon. Don't make a fuss. The sky and the ground switched places. Above floated the Svagov Gate, while below them waited the planet of Klasbul. Decelerate how hard, exactly? We're going fairly fast at the moment, so you can expect a rough ride. Go easy on me, please. I could go slower if you prefer burning to a crisp on entry. No thanks, I hate when it's hot out. Then you'd best grit your teeth for this. And so it began, an experience that would make their acceleration up to that point seem breezy by comparison. Their soft seats were holding them in place, but still his ribs were near to crumpling in. Blood rushed away from his extremities. His world was turning as red as his eyes. Jinto gritted his teeth and endured. He stole a glance at Leifir. Even she was sweating. Their rough ride wore on. How much time had passed now? Suddenly, the footage cut out, taking with it the stars above and the blue sphere below. Back to the walls of opal white. And the pressure pinning their bodies disappeared, too. Wah, what happened? Worry not. I've merely detached the hull. Merely? We can hardly enter the atmosphere while carrying antimatter fuel. Think of how that'd affect the planet's people. But you didn't have to go that far, did you? Yet more of excessiveness, thought Jinto. Connecting vessels aren't designed with surface landing in mind. Leifir was speaking rapidly now. All landings are emergency landings. Can we even land without a hull? We can't land with a hull, Leifir had lost her patience. I'm frightened too, Jinto. This is my first time surface landing. Your first time. I told you before, I've never been to a terrestrial world. But surely it's come up in training. Yes, I've done the mock training, but that's all. So which one's got you scared, surface landing or being on a surface world? Both. And Jinto could more than see why that might be. He held his tongue, since he understood that forging through fear was a personal struggle, and the last thing he wanted was to get in her way. Not long after, the shaking commenced. The vessel, or what remained of it, dragged against Klasbul's atmosphere. As they were rocked violently, Jinto could only think, glad I can't see outside. At last, the turbulence died down. Their seats morphed back upright from their sleeping cot mode. The peculiar floating sensation harked back to memories passed within Jinto. This is how it felt that one time, years prior, when he had descended from an orbital tower down to the surface. Oh man, I remember. He'd been a ball of worry back then, too. So much so that he could barely recall what the cabin attendant who had been at his side looked like. I wonder what the world below is like. That train of thought snapped him out of his reverie. I totally forgot. Leifir eyed him inquiringly. Forgot what? We're gonna need info on this planet. Have we got any location data on board? Yes, there should be relevant data in the computing crystals Boisepsec memory bank. Awesome. Computing crystals, give us data on the Svagov Marquisate. The words Lebuhunu Svagnome appeared on screen alongside a large article entry, with headers for history, geography, and industry listed underneath. Please select a category and one or more operations, said the cyber voice. Operations include browse, add, copy. Jinto inserted his armrest Simek, wire, into his CompuWatch and said, whole document, copy. Understood flashed twice on screen before shifting into a complete. No more operations, computing crystals, said Jinto. He unplugged the wire and patted the CompuWatch. A little bit of information would go a long way, so he was glad it had occurred to him to check. Why hadn't Leifir made any effort to research any potential safe havens? Was she not clear on standard operating procedures for surface landing? But the second he was about to ask her as much, the shock of impact. Did we land? He squeaked pitifully. Yep. Their hair was swaying from back to front as the wind rolled through. Jinto looked behind and saw the door to the airlock room was open. Only there was no airlock room there. What met his eyes instead was tall straw-colored vegetation, rustling in near darkness, but for the light emitted by the steerer's room. They were on land. Jinto, we need to hurry. They may have spotted us from above. Leifir removed her seatbelt and bade Jinto stand up, too. Right. Jinto got to his feet. Open. Leifir commanded the seats. They folded backward at a precise 90-degree angle. Does that opening lead into some secret basement? No, stupid. The compartment underneath the seats was for storage. Its contents were covered by the douche-long robe she'd purloined from the barony. Leifir set that wardrobe aside to reveal the 2 phasers that had been out of sight. Take and keep one. I was wondering where you'd hidden these, said Jinto, who took a gun plus accompanying items. I wasn't hiding them. I simply stashed them while you were having a nap. It is a cramped space. I get it. Please don't take every little thing at face value. It was just banter. He put on his sash belt and holstered his gun in it. This too. She handed him a knapsack. On it was written for emergency surface evacuation in small text. It contained a bunch of combat rations parcels, an assortment of tools, and some medicines. Hope they're not past the best-by date, he said, glowering at the rations. He closed the lid over the knapsack and strapped it on. It wasn't very heavy on his back. Lastly, Leifir picked up a fluff, pendant-like trinket and put it on over her neck. Jinto. She held it in her hand for him to see. The patrol ship Goslatha's navigation log is in this. If I should die, I'd like you to escape with it. Come on, don't go jinx, but the royal princess's intense stare made him feel small. It's just a hypothetical. All right, Jinto nodded. Leifir returned the nod and tucked the pendant into the collar of her military uniform. Then, she issued the following command to the computing crystals. Prepare for deletion. The words deletion preparation complete danced on screen. Is there anything you'd like to take out of the crystals? Asked Leifir. Jinto shook his head. No. Okay. Leifir's tone turned pained. Computing crystals, this is goodbye. For the sake of confidentiality, delete everything. Understood. Executing confidentiality protocols. Deleting all information and system processors. We wish you peace and safety. A pair of eyes appeared on screen, only for their lids to slowly droop. Once they were totally shut, the screen blinked out. Dark sense of humor for a computer, thought Jinto. However, Leifir was of a clearly very different reaction. She faced the screen and saluted it. All right, let's go, said Leifir, laying her hands on the door's edge. Wait, hold on. Jinto jumped for the long robe that Leifier had tossed to the side on the floor. "What are you doing?" said Leifier, having returned. She peered at what Jinto held in hand. "We're gonna need money too." Jinto turned it over and collected the sash clip. It consisted of a ruby embedded in a platinum base. As such, it could probably fetch quite the price. "Money?" Leifier cocked her head. "We have money." "Huh. I'll show you." She worked her CompuWatch. "See? 5,000 scar. I haven't used any of what Filoron, His Highness my father, gave me." Given that on Delk2, Jinto had gotten by with around 20 scar a month, that was a positively tantalizing goldmine. And yet, what use was Empire money on a planet that was this close to succumbing to an enemy occupation? Not only that, but the currency existed purely digitally on her CompuWatch anyway. Who here would accept that as legitimate tender? But it soon dawned on a dumbfounded Jinto. There was nothing like the realization that Leifier was a child of the stars through and through, and a highborn one at that, to clear any illusions he had about her innate royal competencies. She'd no doubt never even shopped by herself before. "I'll go into it later. Let's just get out of here for now." Jinto stuffed the sash clip into the knapsack and stepped outside. He looked back at the spherical remains of the vessel they'd soon be abandoning and noted 4 wing-like flaps spread out at the top. They probably deployed to create more air resistance and slow their descent. Unfortunately, they also made the vessel stick out like a sore thumb when viewed from above. They needed to leave, and fast. "Should we run?" asked Leifier. "If you're okay running." "What do you mean, if I'm okay?" "I mean, you might be tuckered out." "I'm not. I'm more worried about you." "Need I remind you that I'm the one who's more used to running on land?" With that, Jinto was off. "Wait, Jinto, there's something wrong with my eyes," shouted Leifier. "What?" Startled, he stopped in his tracks. Leifier had looked up at the sky after taking a step out of the steerer's room. "The stars look like they're flickering to me." Jinto likewise looked up. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. Sure enough, the stars were flickering for Jinto, too, but he knew that didn't mean his vision was faulty. If this were the capital, I'd have ready access to treatment, but here, Leifier screwed up her determination and faced Jinto. "I don't want to be a burden on you. If I lose my eyesight, I want you to take the navigation log and leave me. I hate to piss all over your splendid martyr spirit," cut in Jinto, "but your eyes are totally fine." "You'd best not be consoling me with lies," she said sternly. "I'm not consoling you. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's refraction that causes it. In any case, the stars always seem to twinkle from inside an atmosphere." "Really?" She probed his expression, aided by the light filtering from the steerer's room. "I'm not smart enough to come up with such a plausible lie on the fly. That's just how the stars appear on terrestrial worlds." "Relieved?" "I suppose," Leifier admitted, albeit reluctantly. Through the tenor of her voice, he could sense she was, in fact, relieved. "I get the feeling your education was lacking in a critical department." "Shut up, Jinto." "I'll shut up. Talking while running is too hard anyway." Judging by the orderly rows of identical vegetation, it seemed they were in a field. What that crop actually was, they didn't know. They looked like some form of grain. The first thing that popped to Jinto's mind was wheat ears. The plots had been planted such that a single-person file could traverse the gaps between. The dirt underfoot was damp, but not muddy enough to impede their progress. On the contrary, the ground was just soft enough to be perfect for running. A short while after they'd begun running, there was a shift in the starry sky above. A large number of charged particles formed in the battle beyond Clasbiel's atmosphere, painted fluttering streaks of red and green as they came raining down.